In this lesson, we are going to calculate percentages and use them in calculations because percentages are used quite frequently in healthcare. The basic definition of a percentage is shown here. Percent equals part over whole times 100. We have to look at the context of the problem or the information that we're being given to determine what's the part and what is the whole. Let's look at some simple examples about how to interpret percentages. If 20% of the marbles are blue, that tells us that 20 marbles out of every 100 marbles is going to be blue. So 0.2 or 1/5 of the marbles are blue because 20% is the same as a fraction of 1/5 or the decimal of 0.2. Now we have two questions that follow up. How many blue marbles if we had 50 marbles, and how many blue marbles if we had 80? So let's look at how we would solve these two problems. We know that 20% of the marbles are blue and that we have 50 marbles total. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down our equation for percentage. Percent equals part over a whole times 100. The next thing I need to do is figure out what information I know that I can plug into my equation. So we're given the percentage of 20%, so we can plug that into the equation. The next thing we have to decide is whether the 50 is the part or the whole. Going back to the context of the problem, it said we have 50 marbles in total, and we were trying to find the number that are blue. That indicates that the 50 is the whole value. So the part is our unknown, and we'll substitute in x for that value. So now we have x over 50 times 100. Now it just becomes an algebra problem to rearrange and solve for the x. First, I'm going to divide both sides by 100. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by 50, and we get 10 equals x. And this is a reasonable answer because we know that only 20% of the marbles are blue, so that number had to be less than 50. Now let's look at the second example where 20% are blue and we have 80 marbles. We're going to set up this problem very similarly to the previous one. We're going to write our equation for percentage, and then we're going to plug in our known values. Just like before, the number of marbles given is the whole, so we end up with 20% equals x over 80 times 100. Now we can divide both sides by 100 and then multiply both sides by 80, and we get x equals 16. So in this case we have 80 marbles instead of 50, so we have 16 that are blue compared to 10 that were blue. So it's the same percentage, but the quantity increases.